a serene essence that gently resides in the nooks of a home, once alive with the gentle melodies of a mother's joy. Now it's just him and me, the walls recalling her before the story unfolds. I would greatly appreciate it if you could like the video and subscribe, as it significantly supports my channel. He gazes at me, attempting to conceal the burden he bears, yet I perceive it, sense it deeply. He smiles just a fraction too late each time, or holds on to a moment for a second too long. In those pauses, something else awakens, something unnamed, something that resonates softly, like a whisper. Only we can perceive the vibrations hidden beneath the routine we've established. I can't pinpoint when it began, but I realize that his silent glances make me feel more alive than anything else the world has offered me. It had been a year since we lost her. A full year of navigating life without the woman who effortlessly held us both together. She embodied grace, warmth, and kindness, and her absence made the air feel colder, even under the bright sun. We didn't discuss the grief often. He wasn't the type to express pain through words. Instead, he carried it like a second skin, silently heavy and enduring. Yet within that silence, something else started to flourish. It was never articulated, never physically engaged, yet it lingered like the scent of soil following a downpour, subtle yet undeniably present. One night, I recall, it was raining, an enveloping kind of rain that muted everything, cloaking the world in a gentle veil of sound. I struggled to sleep, as I had on many nights before, and made my way downstairs for some tea. The kitchen light was on, and there he was, his back turned, hands resting on the counter, staring into space. He turned at the sound of my voice, and our eyes locked. For a brief moment, silence enveloped us, just as it always did at the start. Quietude, followed by an essence that feels profoundly personal in its straightforwardness. He inquired if sleep had eluded him. He nodded at you as well. He exhaled softly, and the movement of his shoulders resembled a subtle confession. I believe I have overlooked the sound of her voice. Most nights, he said, his voice cracked just a little, and it tugged at something deep within me. Did not respond immediately. I approached, filled a cup for each of us, and offered him his. Our fingers grazed the surface, merely skin on skin for a fleeting moment, yet it took my breath away. He grasped the cup with both hands, as if it provided him with a purpose, a way to anchor himself. "You've become quite strong," he whispered. She would feel a sense of pride. The warmth in those words seeped into my cast. "Just as you have." He offered a faint, distant smile, his eyes probing mine as if seeking something that had been lost ages ago. After that, we remained mostly silent throughout the night. Yet the silence, we had said enough as we stood together, sipping tea and listening to the rain, enveloped in something intangible, yet unmistakable. Afterward, I returned to my room. For some time, the warmth of his proximity lingered within me. I lay in bed, gazing at the ceiling, attempting to define what I was. Unable to feel. It was neither incorrect nor correct, either one. Time continued to move forward, as it invariably does. Seasons, life transformed, embraced new routines. It began to take on more responsibilities around the house. Preparing meals, managing tasks, maintaining order. His company, when the silence loomed ominously, become excessively noisy. He started to spend more time at the kitchen table on the porch next to me. His conversations became more subdued, more intimate. He would inquire about my aspirations, my recollections, the things that brought me joy, not in a paternal way, just following up. It was not the same. It seemed as though he had no desire to get to know me. Ash's daughter approached me one evening in early spring. I discovered him in the backyard, observing the trees dance gently in the wind. The golden light cast long shadows. She sat on the bench, absorbed in her thoughts. His fingers were clasped tightly, as if he were holding something delicate and fearful of letting it slip away. Would it be all right if I joined? He glanced up in surprise, then nodded with a smile that warmed everything within me. We sat closer than we typically do. The atmosphere surrounding us was electric. With an unspeakable weight between us, neither of us dared to shatter the silence. After a while he whispered, "You remind me of her. However, you are not her. You are something completely unique, more powerful, perhaps more vibrant." My breath caught as I leaned toward him slowly, unsure of what to say. My chest ached in that beautiful way one can sense when something genuine comes into contact, almost grazing the surface. He averted his gaze swiftly, as if he had revealed more than intended. I placed my hand softly on his. "It's not necessary." Apologized that his hand remained in place. It remained there, cozy beneath mine. His fingers twitched slightly before curling around mine. In return, I sensed that touch profoundly in areas I couldn't reach. "Name is not wrong," I said softly, "simply complicated." He gazed at me, then truly gazed, and in his eyes I perceived years of love, sorrow, and something blossoming through the fissures. An unforeseen occurrence. I am uncertain about when it occurred. He mentioned that whenever you enter a room, it seems like everything becomes a bit more manageable. I took a deep breath. I share the same sentiment. That was everything. No statements. There are no intense moments. Only truth shared in the dimming glow of that evening. I stood outside his bedroom door. I'm not quite sure why. Perhaps I was inclined to see how he was doing. Perhaps I hoped he would reach out to me. Yet I didn't make the first move. I remained in that spot for an extended period, absorbing the stillness around me. Then I returned to my room, my heart pounding with a sensation that was both perilous and profoundly reassuring. The subsequent days were gentle in an unusual manner. We navigated around one another like two magnets, uncertain whether to draw closer or remain distant. Our conversations expanded, our silences became more profound, and he began to touch me more frequently. Subtle touches, almost imperceptible, graze my shoulder. A gentle touch rests on my back. A gentle squeeze of my fingers as he walked by. A dish. Each one conveyed more than words ever could express. I recall a moment when I was preparing dinner, and he stood next to me, close enough that I could sense his warmth beside me. "You've become the very essence of this home," he said softly. I looked at him in astonishment. "Your words occasionally resonate with a poetic quality." He laughed. "You motivate them." It turned back to the stove, a flush creeping across its surface, while my hands shook that night. We dined together by candlelight, just the two of us, not for romance, not intentionally. However, it seemed as though we didn't communicate much at all. The flame flickered in his eyes, and each time he glanced at me, it was as if it came alive. After dinner, it seemed as though a secret was being exchanged between us. I extended my hand to clear the plates, but he softly placed his hand over mine, halting my movement. "Thank you," he murmured, his voice barely above a whisper. "Why are you staying? What is it that allows me to be here?" Experience once more. I was unsure of how to reply. My throat felt constricted. My eyes burned, unspoken as I stepped back, our hands parting like a lingering farewell. Yet it was not truly a goodbye. It was merely the start of something we would later struggle to define. I sat by my window, observing the moon as it ascended, contemplating the essence of loving someone. Not due to their expected roles, but rather because of their true selves. He was all that I needed, a guardian, a source of sustenance, a presence in my darkest moments. Yet now he had become something more. Something gentle, and with a subtle pain within my chest. The world would never grasp this. However, perhaps it was not necessary. Perhaps it sufficed that he and I recognized our hearts connected not amidst turmoil but in tranquility, and within that tranquility, a thing of beauty. The night lingered, creeping in slowly as if attempting to avoid startling anyone. The silence that had enveloped us in recent weeks transformed our days into something beyond mere routines. Now they were gentle movements around emotions we couldn't identify, where each look resonated, as if it contained countless unexpressed truths. I started to observe the tiniest details. The way his voice changed when he spoke, along with how his presence filled the room even in silence. His hands brushed against mine, as if he hadn't intended to, yet he never truly pulled away. We paused, acting as if the world surrounding us remained unchanged. Perhaps it hadn't in that manner. While others might anticipate, there was a quiet, gradual development between us, subtle yet persistent, akin to light discovering its path. One evening, as I walked through a thick forest, I entered the living room to discover him asleep on the couch. His arm lay across his chest, brow slightly furrowed, as if even in sleep he bore a weight too heavy to release. I paused for a moment, uncertain of my next move. Something within me compelled me to reach out to him, to alleviate whatever burden he carried. I extended my hand toward the blanket neatly folded at the end of the couch and softly draped it over him. As I did, his eyes fluttered open, not in surprise but with a hint of laughter. "I didn't mean to wake you," I whispered. He blinked a few times before offering a slow smile. "You didn't believe I was waiting for you?" His words carried a certain weight, as if the veil of sleep had lifted the barriers he typically maintained between us. I settled onto the edge of the couch, feeling uncertain. What I was doing felt so natural. "Do you ever wonder?" He spoke softly. "Imagine the sensation of releasing all the emotions we believe we ought to suppress." My heart felt constricted, constantly. His hand reached for mine, a subtle movement, unplanned and confident, his fingers enveloping mine as if they had been anticipating this moment for an eternity. "I have dedicated my entire life to adhering to rules." She mentioned fulfilling expectations, expressing love appropriately, and mourning in a proper manner. He gazed at me intently, yet none of that ever equipped me for the emotions that arise when I see you. I remained silent, unable to articulate the words that lingered on my tongue, delicate as petals too fragile to utter. I intertwined my fingers with his, exploring the gaps between them and holding on tightly. What we felt wasn't wrong. It simply lay beyond the boundaries set by others. What we had, what we were evolving into, emerged from sorrow and was reconstructed with attention. It wasn't about substituting her. It wasn't about erasing memories. It was about discovering a path to embrace life once more. The warming spring transitioned into early summer, and everything appeared to flourish, trees and flowers alike. Even the way he smiled has changed more now, and I found myself smiling back more than I ever had during those lazy afternoons outside, reading and talking about everything and nothing. I discovered aspects of him I had never known, such as his passion for classical music, his past as a painter before life stripped that away, and his enduring fear of solitude. "I'm not afraid anymore," he declared one afternoon, as Wes lounged beneath the porch, the sky stretching endlessly above us. "Not while you're present." His voice held a softness that enveloped me like the warmth of sunlight. "I once believed that love had to adhere to a script," he continued, "but perhaps the truest form of love is the one that requires no explanation." I faced him, my heart racing. "Is that what this is all about?" His eyes locked onto mine, and for the first time he held my gaze. "Indeed," he replied plainly, "it is." There were no fireworks, no dramatic music, just a serene understanding between two hearts that had endured enough to recognize the authenticity that was present before them that night. A change occurred. He stood at my bedroom door, not from uncertainty, but because the distance between us had lost its meaning. We remained silent. There was no need for him to inquire, nor for me to respond. I stepped forward, and for a moment we simply stood there, sharing the same air, our hearts steady yet uncertain. His hand lingering. Rose gently brushed a strand of hair from my cheek, his thumb lingering for a moment, warm against my skin. "You mean everything," he whispered. "More than I ever thought I could feel again." I surrendered to his touch, shutting my eyes, allowing the moment to envelop me. There was no necessity to cross boundaries, no requirement to articulate what remained unspoken. The connection we shared existed in the moments between touches, in the quiet smiles and stolen glances. It was pure in its essence. The intricate nature of silence has lingered with me throughout the night. Not in the manner that stories typically convey, but in the way that held the greatest significance. He sat by my bed, our hands intertwined as we spoke until our voices faded to whispers and whispers to breath. As I drifted off, his fingers rested softly around mine. Awakening the next morning, I felt a sense of safety I had never experienced before, discovering him still there, half asleep and holding on. As if fearing the night would fade into morning, I spoke softly. He opened his eyes and smiled, his gaze filled with an indescribable emotion that I understood profoundly. "I didn't want to leave," he murmured. "Then don't." We spent the following weeks in a space that felt both familiar and entirely new. Every meal was shared, and every glance held meaning, so we rarely spoke of the depth growing between us, yet it existed quietly. We understood what the world might think. If they witnessed it, we were aware of the rules and expectations. Yet we also recognized the truth that resided in our hearts. That love can emerge in the most unexpected places, not through rebellion, but through healing. He never attempted to define it, and I never required him to. What we shared was ours, a truly authentic unwritten bond. In the evening, we sat on the porch as the sun sank below the tree. She extended her hand and intertwined her fingers with his. "I can't predict what tomorrow holds," he said, "but I do know that I want you to be a part of it." I leaned my head against his shoulder. That is all I have ever desired, and in that moment the world seemed serene once more, yet not devoid of meaning. It encompassed all that we had endured, all that we had transformed into. The grief no longer separated us. Instead, it had shaped us, molded our hearts into something gentler, something stronger, and now we were enveloped in the golden light of another day's end. I realized we had discovered something extraordinary, not merely love, but a love that required no explanation from Toby, only an experience to be felt.